This is a new series called Everything is Related. In this video, I'm going to connect how weightlifters are related, Olympic weightlifters, to achieving anything you want in life, okay? And so you got to follow me for a second, but let's go through why Olympic athletes, Olympic weightlifters, are related to this concept of achieving anything you want. So who is an Olympic weightlifter? There's someone who has an interest in weightlifting. And not only that, they have a particularly high interest, right? So this strategy that I'm gonna walk through, over the next couple of minutes can apply to anyone, right? And so you should watch through, because even though I'm talking about weightlifters, it could apply in your situation, it can apply in my situation. We're gonna extract a formula from this that can be applied over here on how, if you have a particular interest in weightlifting, this is how you would become the best. Well, we're going to extract that and you can use it anywhere you want to become the best at anything in life. Okay. A weightlifter is someone who has a particularly high interest, more than the average person, in weightlifting, right? In order to become the best of the best, you have to have something driving you to put in the hours, right? So how do you become an Olympic weightlifter? It starts with the interest. You just have something in you that causes you to want to do this thing, want to go out there and attempt to become an Olympic weightlifter, right? Okay, so then what else is different about an Olympic weightlifter? Well, they probably spend more time at the gym than anyone else, right? Which would make sense. You see this with pro athletes. They're, marathon runners are running 120, 150 mile weeks. They're just going constantly around the clock. And the more time that you train, the better that you get, right? So the more time that your muscles are under tension, of course you have to have adequate rest time, but like bodybuilders are in the gym constantly. Sam Sulek, he's a big guy on YouTube right now, and every single day he's putting out like an hour or every other day or whatever it is of just content of him at the gym. And that's edited down. That's not, he's probably spending at least 4 hours a day there. And probably, only half of that is, productive time, because most people at the gym are not that efficient. But regardless, here's another thing, right? How do you become an Olympic weightlifter? Well, not only do you spend time at the gym, but you spend higher quality time at the gym, so that every hour that you're putting in has a higher return than every other person there, right? And so, if you're doing the exercises, this is where you focus on technique. And you're like, okay, well, I could just start throwing some barbells around and eventually I would gain muscles. But in order to do this adequately and efficiently, I have to learn the technique. What angle am I going to put my arm at to get the best tension, right? The most stretch of my muscle. Like, how can I make sure that each rep that I'm putting in is not only more time, but also higher quality time in the gym, right? So those are two factors. Well, the third one, you have to be very well fed, right? The quality of food that you take in has to be good, Sam Sulek is not a good example of this, because he is more of a dirty bulk guy. He'll eat just anything. But if you want to be like, like in those upper echelons of like Olympic level weightlifting, where it's competitions and at least for other sports, maybe, I don't really know if it applies to weightlifting. Maybe it does. I feel like it does. Like, you have to have a clean diet, right? Because you're going for optimal. How do you optimize your life to become an Olympic weightlifter, right? That way, it is inevitable that one day you will be in the Olympics. That's what it means to pursue this path. So, what is the optimal food source? Well, if you're eating sugar and really cheap calories, and it has a negative effect on your body, and over time, this has a higher likelihood of, having high blood pressure, or of, having clogs in your arteries, right? Or whatever it is. You're not optimizing, right? Because even if the fuel gives you enough calories or energy to run at the gym, the long-term frame that you're playing on is thwarted. That's the best word I can look for, by your choice of food today, right? And so then the athletes who, they're going to train for 10 years, right? And you're 2 years in and you're just not worried about it. But by the time you get like 5-6 years in and your doctor tells you to start slowing down because he's seeing some negative trends in your health, the ones who were eating a higher quality diet from the start won't face that down the road. So they have a more likely chance that they will live healthily to the point of being able to be in the Olympics. So they're allowing themselves to stay in the game longer, right? Okay, so then the third one is the quality of your intake, the quality of your diet or your information that you take in or whatever it is, right? Because once again, this is not just weightlifters. We're extracting this and applying it to anyone in life. Okay. Well, then after that, you want to experiment. There's a certain point in time where if you're just at the gym and you're always having to watch a YouTube video on like the next stretch, right? The next, workout routine or exercise or whatever it is, then you're relying on other people to move you to where you should be going, right? You need to have this interest take you to those places in your own training, right? So then what I think of is like you become the lab, right? If you've seen those TikToks of those guys, like, what is he building in there? I just imagine like, this guy's wearing a hoodie and like he's just at the gym constantly. And like people are saying like, what's he building? Because like, what type of body is he building? It's just, you don't know because he's got a sweatshirt on. When you become the lab, it's not really connected to that part, but you can experiment with all these different workouts. And that's one level of it, right? Is instead of just doing other people's workouts, you can do your own. And then you can also do your own, but with a bit of a twist, or, try out all these different techniques from other people and see which one works best for you, for muscle growth or for, for soreness, because that's one gauge of, the quality of that, the stretch of your muscles in that exercise. But anyways, all this is to say, you want to start experimenting, right? The best example of this, knees over toes guy. He's huge on YouTube right now. And I started, seeing him pop up like 2 years ago. And, back then he didn't really have that big of a following. Right now he's got like 2 million YouTube subscribers, 1.4, somewhere in that range. He's a prime example of someone who's taking information from other people, pulling it all together, and on top of that, adding his own twist, right? And seeing what works for him. He's the prime example of an athlete who's recovered from knee surgeries using these exercises. For those of you who don't know, he's pulled together all these exercises around your knees and around your ankles and around all those small muscles throughout the body, and how they have a relation to your likelihood of getting injured. And so if you strengthen them and you do proper training for those muscles that aren't trained as much as like the main muscle groups, like the quads, hamstrings, I'm talking like the piriformis muscle in your hips. You've never heard of that, right? One of them was like the quadratus septaminogenesis, whatever it was. He'll say these things, right? And it's like the small muscle in your back, but he'll give you an exercise to work out that one thing, and it makes you that much more equipped to take on the training at the level that you need to be an Olympic level athlete, to be an NBA basketball player, whatever it is, right? For a long period of time. Because once again, the more time that you have, the more time that you spend at the gym, increases your ability or your chance of being an Olympic weightlifter. But there's also another time scale of, time each day versus time that you're able to compete. Because let me make sure I'm tying up that last part before I go into this. Let's see here. Knees over toes guy, he's always experimenting, right? And so he's actively finding things that work better for him and saying, flipping the question on its head, what muscles are connected to this joint, and how can I work out those muscles? That way I'm less likely to have an injury, right? So that's the fourth characteristic is, experimentation, right? Okay, so then going back to the time scale, right? The more time that you spend in the gym, but also the longer period of time that you're able to compete. Because think about it, if you want to be an Olympic level athlete, once every 4 years are the Summer Olympics. So you have 3 years of training, and then probably about a year out or 18 months out, you have the competition with, all the other Olympic level athletes. And then the U.S. Olympic weightlifting team chooses someone from that group, and whatever that process looks like, though, if you're only able to compete for 4 years because you've just, not stretched at all, not taking care of your training, not taking care of your body, then you have one chance. That's it. Versus if you're in the game for 20 years, that's 5 chances to be on the Olympic level team. And not only that, you've, by that time, become a master of weightlifting. You've figured out all of the exercises. You've literally put yourself through the gauntlet for probably 10 years at that point, and you're maximizing your chance of succeeding, right? So there's 2 different timescales at play. Now, all of these things, those are just a couple. And so if you can think of anything else, comment it below. I've had some comments recently, and they've been great. I love the discussion. I love the ideas. Keep them coming. But let's apply this. Let's extract this, right? The question that we're trying to figure out is, how do you optimize your life to accomplish whatever it is that you want to accomplish? Because that's what this life is about. You have a particular set of interests in mind that grip you, and they're drawing you towards them, right? And if you never ask the question, what am I interested in, you will never find those things, and you will live your whole life like sucked into a job that you hate. And it's not a bad thing to work. It's not a bad thing to have a job. It's not a bad thing to work for anyone else. It's a bad thing to do these things without a reason, without a purpose, without a motivating force behind that, right? So my goal, one of my interests, is to unlock human potential, unleash human potential. So I want you to take this activity, and I'll do the same because I'm coming up with this on the spot. What do I want to optimize my life for? What am I trying to optimize for? That's the question. So why is Kenya optimal for marathon runners? Well, for one, it's just become a cultural trend. In the United States, if there's any place in the world that's producing the most basketball players, it's the United States, because culturally it's rewarded. So, if I have the highest chance, if I'm 6'7", right, I'm probably not going to play in the NFL for football. Probably not going to play soccer or be a runner because I'm really big. Although there are a couple triathlon athletes. One guy just retired, so it is possible. But probably not going to bike in the Tour de France. Most likely, if I'm 6'7", I've got a constraint set on me that's made it optimal for me to be an NBA basketball player, right? So I'm going to go out and try to pursue that dream if I want to play sports in the, competitively. But then it's optimal to do that in the United States. So if I live in a foreign country, well, I'll probably find a way to get a visa to go live in the United States, right? They say that like the number one maker of millionaires is the zip code. Being around people who are like-minded helps tremendously because it opens you to opportunity, to information. You have competitiveness, and that's another one that I was going to say earlier, which I'll just add it in, is community, right? So maybe this 5th characteristic of how to achieve anything you want in this life is community. You have to have a competitive community around you that's keeping you motivated to go there every single day and continue to push for this dream that you have, right? And also they're teaching you what they've learned. So not only are they pushing you to stay, and so you're more likely to be there because you have the support and also the motivation for the days where you're not necessarily feeling like it, but you have the lessons from another person. You're basically doubling your chance with every person that you bring on. You're adding, one more person's life experiences and knowledge to your personal repertoire. I think that's the word. So, yeah. Anyways, why is Kenya optimal for marathon runners? Well, it's a cultural trend. And so then, you have all of these really tall guys or just marathon runners. They have the marathon build. But on top of that, you got to think, you got to ask some questions, right? If you look at all the Tour de France bikers This will connect to the marathon runners in just a second. What's the main similarity between every Tour de France biking competition, whatever it is, winner? They are all super lightweight, because at a certain point, going uphill, which that's the whole point of the Tour de France, is that it's through all these mountains, right, over the course of 3 weeks. These bikers are just going constantly. The one who weighs the least and who can take the most pain is optimal to win that race, because you're fighting against gravity. At a certain point, the bike can't get any lighter. The food can't get any better. Everyone's on the course for around the same amount of time. You want to get that extra 1%, you have to be 1 pound lighter, because over the course of the event, that compounds or adds up very fast to tenths of a second that ultimately win you the race. And so if you look at Kenya, what is one potential reason, and I'm not saying that this is it, but if I were to guess, what would be one potential reason that Kenya has a lot of great marathon runners? Well, their diet consists of highly of carbs, right? And so because they don't have a lot of protein intake in their diet, because it's very expensive, especially in a country that's not as developed as the United States, right? Kenya's not as developed. They're largely based on, farm-based or like agriculture, so carb-based diets, right? Well, then you're less likely to build muscle, because that's how you build muscle. You have a high protein diet, and that replaces or replenishes, strengthens your body, right? So what's one potential reason why Kenya is optimal for that? It's because their diet is optimal. You have very lightweight athletes running in Kenya. And not only that, there's a cultural trend, right? And it's in some ways, maybe not an escape from Kenya, but it's a pathway into the more developed world, right? Because, and once again, I'm saying all these things without the knowledge and without thinking this out. This is all just like off the dome of like speculation, right? So who knows if I'm right? Who knows if I'm saying something entirely wrong? But this is just my thoughts as of right now with very limited information. In a more developed country, recreational sports and entertainment are more available to the average person, because they don't have to go out and raise a farm, raise, several children, because, sometimes, or in foreign countries that are less developed, the child mortality rate is very high. So we take for granted in countries like the United States that we have a grocery store just down the road, and that there's this system that's been set up that we're the benefactor of. We don't have to raise 6 children, because our healthcare is incredible, and we live 5 minutes away from a hospital, and it's somewhat affordable, even though it's still pretty damn expensive, right? These are the things that are not the luxuries of third world country residents or citizens. And so then I'm getting very political on this, or not political, but like very far out there. When you live in a third world country and you want to somehow find a way to provide for your family, if you can be an athlete and compete in races around the globe, then you can win money somewhere else and bring it back, right? You can send money back home and be a positive light in your community. So maybe all these things together make Kenya optimal for being the best marathon runners, right? And this is what you see with Eliud Kipchoge. He's from Kenya, and he just broke the 2-hour marathon record like last year, which is everyone thought was impossible, right? He did it for a long enough time with a high concentration of training, so very difficult training programs, and with the best coaches. And he started early enough to where he's able to compete for a long enough amount of time. He's taking his health seriously, and he's eaten a diet that was optimal for marathon runners, because he doesn't weigh that much, right? So he's able to fly. And not only that, he's as time has gone by, he's started training with a higher quality group of people. They're pushing him forward. He's got people, a couple different people joining him throughout his runs that are pacing him. So now he has a community of people motivating him and enabling him to train at the highest level, right? And he's experimenting. So what food, should I eat, or what time should I eat at, or what shoe? This is the main part. What shoe felt the best? He talked about that in a video I watched the other day. That he keeps a log of all the shoes that he's running. That way he can feel which one did I like while training. Was this better for recovery and all those different things? And so he's experimenting. Okay. That's how you become an Olympic level athlete. That's how you become an Olympic level marathon runner, weightlifter, whatever it is you find all these things in those categories that I just mentioned. Now, extract that. Take that information out, right? How can you apply this to your life? If you want to be the best social media content creator, well, you got to spend more time creating higher quality content with a community of people who are going to push you to strive for excellence. And you're going to experiment on things that no one's ever thought of. That way it sets you apart. You're unique and you're providing something valuable, right? And so those characteristics, which I'm so glad that I just said that in a sentence, that was kind of fire. Those characteristics, you can apply that and maybe more. I'll keep thinking through it. And once again, comment it down below if you've thought of anything, but you can apply that to your life and whatever you want to do. And that's the recipe for success, The recipe for success. Spend more time doing higher quality stuff. And it like when I say it, it makes sense. It's like, yeah, this is obvious. It's like, well, sometimes it takes a slap in the face to be confronted with the things that we knew existed, but didn't ever take the time to fully develop. I think most of this is a whole nother conversation. Most every one of us has the opportunity to achieve something great in this life. If only we took the time to build out and ask the right questions. If only we made a system around this to optimize our life so that whatever we wanted to achieve in this life was inevitable. And so you have the ability to do that. You have the power within you to go out there and achieve something great. You do. It starts with seeing what grips your interests and then designing a system around it to optimize your life so that it is inevitable that you will do something great. So that's my challenge for you. Allow for the possibility that you are capable of more than you could ever imagine, and you'll open the door to your unrealized potential. This is a good one. This is a good one today. 41, baby. 41. I'll see y'all tomorrow.